Good evening, everyone. You guys hear me in the back? We're gonna go ahead and get started. We're about to get started. If we can go ahead and get the message, and everyone else kind of like proceed up the right side, say hi to us at the front, and then find yourself a seat. And then we'll get started when we've got the room packed. Thank you. Yes, really. Wow, what a crowd. Good evening. I'm Alex. This is my wife, Kai. We want to thank you all for coming out tonight in memory of our son. I'm not going to start talking. We're going to actually bring up his first cousins who played a major part in raising him. And they've got some stories they want to share. After that, we're going to bring up some friends from when he grew up in Winston, Montessori, and through high school. And then afterwards, we'd like to invite the video game community to come up and say a few words about what they've been. I shout that to you. And hopefully, if I can keep myself together, I'll come up at the end. All right, so if we could get the cousins up. Oh yes, I'm sorry, I forgot. Um, my work sister Evelyn is going to say a brief prayer to get us started.
Get through this one. But I consider this a celebration of life for PT. He's so well loved, as you can see by the crowd in here tonight, and those who are online as well. And I just want to share a few words that I hope brings comfort to you. That I really believe is a promise for all of us. For God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, that whoever believes in Him shall not perish but have eternal life. And that is a promise that I have hope in, that we will be able to see PT. And also that no greater love than that we lead out for our fellow man. And PT was so well loved. And I pray that there's peace and comfort in the room tonight, and as you go home, that we travel safely. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
My name is Deepa, and people who knew PT through me probably knew him more through the stories I told about him. Probably more from that than from having actually met him in person. When he was a kid, I often talked about him, and people often thought he was my kid. We all have some memory of him that we'll treasure. Ani, my child, will remember him saying, "Hey kid," every time she walks in the room. Spending time together playing video games, him introduced and always checking with me if they were kid appropriate. He'd be like, "There's no blood." Yes, they get beheaded, but there's no blood. It's fine. I asked her today, and I was like, "Well, what games do you really remember?" She said, "Well, I remember the most recent one, and I'll always remember what a drug bar fight is now." I was like, "Oh, well, that's great." Just for reference, she has just turned 14, so I'll remember him as the little kid who one day cut his hair in a strip so close to the scalp that it looked like he had shaved his head. And he was so upset about it at first, and we were like, "No, it's fine, you look great." And I think we overcorrected a little bit because he refused to wear a hat after that, and we'd have to be seen in public with him missing a strip of hair. And he's like, "No, it's cool." I'm like, "Okay." And that confidence kind of followed him. And even as he got older, he was always unapologetically himself. There's nothing you could say to make him feel uncomfortable about who he displayed to the world. But other than that little kid, I'll also remember him as someone who was generous with his time. He, no matter, he always had time for us, always had time for on. He was patient with her and with us. We weren't always seeing eye to eye on things, but he never held a grudge. There's nothing that we could make him upset about where he was upset about it forever. He enjoyed sharing his love of gaming. He was an amazing artist. And he was usually the most stubborn guy in the room, which is a lot to say in this family. And one of the things that really, like, a memory we have of him is something that maybe reinforces how stubborn he was, is he's probably the only person who would argue so hard with me that my grandma would be like, I can't even hear you anymore. I turned my hearing aids off, so just shut up. So, I know that we all have things that we'll remember about him. He'll always have a special place in our hearts.
Oh, it's gonna be a rough night, folks. Okay, there's 5 cousins in the room. You all know who you are.
Hi, I'm Layla, obviously a cousin. I didn't grow up with PT as much as Diva, but I've been coming to Dallas for Christmas and to stay with my Uncle Alex and my Auntie Kai, who generously opened their home to a bunch of us every Christmas. And so I got to spend time with PT from when he was probably 6 years old and tormenting me. I must have been in my mid-20s, and I didn't have a lot of patience for a little kid. And I was coming back later when I was married, and then I had a son of my own, and then I had a second son of my own. And so I this time saw PT from being a little kid to a middle schooler to a high schooler. Now I actually recommend a couple of his friends from that time to after high school, and so I watched him always being this enthusiastic, energetic, fun, sarcastic a kid who, but I didn't really appreciate who he was until I had kids of my own, and then I saw what a sweet, patient guy he was with these, 2 kids, who were always in his room, always wanted to play with him. He was probably the first sort of boy role model they had, so they just always wanted to be in there with him, and he let them, like, at Christmas time, put him in a box, and wrap him up like a present. He just let them hang out all the time while he was doing stuff. He had a Nintendo that he'd gotten off eBay that he was like super proud of, a really old one, but they wanted to play with it, so he would let them, and he was always like, don't pull on the cords, careful with the cords, but in a patient way, and they were not careful with the cords. little kids, but he let them, and then years later I remember he was just playing over games with them, and that's how I knew PT was just this my youngest cousin, but a really sweet kid who I knew my boys were lucky to spend time with. So I just wanted to share that. But I also wanted to say that I read some of the words that some of you wrote about him. Your experiences with him, some of his friends in the gaming development community. And I just want to thank you for sharing, that side of PT that I'm sure a lot of us never got to know. The kind of arguments or insights or things he would say on those forums or whatever, it let me see my cousin in a way I never got to. So thank you very much for saying those things. I really appreciate it.
I'm Mike, cousin. I also remember PT as the younger PT because I also got to Alex opened his home to me, and I stayed with them for a little while, and actually got to live with PT and Alex for some point of time. So while I was there, I got to play with him, and he was always into these video games and games, and he was always into these Pokemon and role playing video games, and I was always trying to get him to play fighting games with me, and he like refused to play the fighting games, and like we would try, and I would beat his ass, and he would be like no, let's play like a Pokemon game, or like he would have like all the colors, and like I think they were like colors at first, and then they changed to like crystals or something, like a ruby or a diamond or something like that, and he had like every system, and like I don't know, he was spoiled by my uncle, so he like I think he had like from every generation of like video games as they progressed all the way, so like kind of learned every system and the insides and outs of everything, and I'll be like, come on, man, let's play a fighting game so I can beat your ass at it again. But you know, he was always into role playing games, and he would always be in his room with his. He would always have a controller, a mouse in his hand, try to build like maps or worlds or some sort of. Yeah, that was just PT. And I was like, PT, come on, let's go do something. No, I'll be in my room trying to design a map or some sort of game or something. But that's just the PT as I remember him. And the first game I moved to Las Vegas and then kind of lost touch. But as I do remember, I mean, I was as unfortunate as this time has been. Was able to read some of the things as he got older and all the relationships and in the gaming community as they progressed, and it was like amazing to see all the people that he collaborated with and all the gaming community and all the stories that I read. It was just amazing to see all the people he helped and touched, and like it was just great to see like he made a difference in a lot of people and all the things that he did. It was just we were proud of him, and all the games that he developed, and like yeah, we're just happy to have supported him when he was younger so that he could grow to be the guy he was. But that's pretty much all I would say.
My sister. That's what I'm.
That's what you're known as.
Yeah. I wrote this down so I could read it. I have to support. He's the baby. Ever since we were always like looking for the Sian trait, and that stubbornness, we all have it. Like, yep, check. He's a Sian. Most of, but I feel like he's the most unique Sian that we have. He had a mind that we couldn't comprehend, but we knew that he knew what he was talking about. He was always asking us to try out his games, and would show us how easy it was, even though for us it wasn't. And he'd always tell me, "It's what you make of it." So I'm just happy to know that he lived his life as he told me he had to play his games. It's what you make of it.
Hello, cousin.
last cousin apparently. Diva's little big sister, as some of you may know. I really didn't have anything planned. Didn't really know about it until yesterday, so I do apologize. I didn't really know PT as an adult, but I can talk about him as he was a kid, being 2.5, 3 years old on his computer. Can't even sit up in a chair. You have to sit on somebody. And if you can sit there for 5 hours and be like, I'm not done. Well, I need a bathroom. I need to eat. So, he was very into Pokemon. And I grew up as a parent now. My 2 kids love Pokemon, so, he was a very big gamer. Every time I would come over, he'd be in his room, playing video games, developing even as a preteen. And I'm glad that he was able to do what he loved. He loved developing. He loved making friends on the internet. I just don't know what to say, you know. I mean, he was doing what he loved. He was the most stubborn one out of the family, and everybody knows it. But he was very opinionated, but not in a hurtful way. I think my time is up, right? Right. But I will say this though. I knew him as a kid because I used to work at the school that he went to. We have a lot of Winsong friends here and his playmates here, and I would always check up on him, just take a little peek to see how he's doing. I don't think Jerry knew about that. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that he was able to do what he loved and he went out in this world doing what he loved. He loved making people happy. He loved his family, parents especially. As you can tell, he loved the pictures. That was his toy from when he was like 2 years old or something like that. Yeah, I think my son is done.
Okay, so cousins were trying to represent the early part of his life. Um, we moved here to Dallas in '98 from Guam, where he was born. Uh, as he turned to 5, we were trying to find a place where we felt like he would be getting a good education. That decision wasn't easy. It took a lot of research that you might know, Sian might do. And so I had never heard of Montessori before. I wasn't sure what that was about, but I did, look into some of them, and I found one that was close by. And so we went there to interview, kind of just check the place out. And I don't know if I ever told Jerry or Albanese this, but what convinced me that this was probably going to be the right place for him to stay is as we walked in, there were mats along the wall. Oh, okay, that'll work for me. And so I'd like to bring up Miss Jerry and Isaac. They're going to talk about this time through the Montessori, and if any of the other Woodstock folks want to come up and speak with them as well, you're welcome to come speak.
My name is Isaac. This is my mom, Jerry. She started and owned and ran Frisco Montessori School. I attended that school from about 2 days old until I was sixth grade, and so I don't remember much of that time. I don't remember when Alex came. I think he must have been 4 maybe. So, I don't remember a time before knowing Alex. But I feel like honored that I got to know all sides of him as somebody who I think knew him by all of his names. Alex, PT, and then Bushido online at first until eventually he became Shout. And he was always kind of an inspiration to me. I don't think I spent as much time in a place as I did at your home. Every weekend it felt like, or any free afternoon, through all the summers, drinking Diet Dr. Pepper and eating all of your brown sugar cinnamon Pop Tarts. It was we would play together a lot of games, but we would also like play separately, just in the same room, and I would watch him make stuff, and to me that was always like the most impressive thing about it. I would sit there, I'd watch him sketch something out on paper, and then move to his computer and start to like walk it out in a 3D modeling program. And we were like 10 years old, and then rig it for animation and add sound effects and insert it into the games that he was playing. And then a few years later, I would find his name on forums, and I would read all of these people kind of arguing over the merits of his work. Like, I think people who maybe didn't know that he was only like 10 years old at the time. Those are the things that I will always remember about him. He was always picking up sticks, swinging them around. And then when I saw him for the last time, about 4.5 years ago, we went to Topgolf, and he was swinging that club around just like when we were at 5. He was a really fun person, and it was, I, as others have said, really appreciate being able to read some of the messages from those of you that knew him these last few years. That was really just not knowing what those years were like for him after hearing the news was really heartening for me. My mom probably has something as well.
So I couldn't help but smile when I learned that his online moniker was Shout. In our quiet little Montessori, there was Alex shouting, tapping, humming, and singing little ditties from video game songs. It was pretty funny. His laugh, of course, was infectious. He was always smiling. I'll remember notes about him. And when something surprising would happen, the first thing out of his mouth would always be, "Don't!" One of my favorite memories of Alex was at our house. We had a pool, and it was winter time, and we just had the impulse to run across the pool park, knee deep in ice cold water, and he says, "Well, that was unexpected." Cry or anything like that. So, he's my son's very close friend and always had a special place in my heart and his family. We love you guys.
Anyone else who would want to come up? Yeah. Feel free to.
With my broken English, I wrote a few words about him. I want to share with you. Sort of just I promise it's a short one. 3 weeks ago, when I got home in the evening, my wife Mary, she's right here, told me that Jerry had called and shared the unfortunate news about Alex. I was most absolutely saddened and to hear about this news and I was speechless from what I heard at that moment. I used to be Alex's teacher at Inside Monastery School in Farmers Branch about 16, 17 years ago. When I was working over there. My 3 to 4 years working at the Inside Monastery was one of the greatest gifts that has happened to me, and I truly enjoyed working with Jerry, and I am forever thankful for that opportunity. We were two monastery teachers at that time, working together to manage a large Montessori classroom with about 27 students, and one of the students in that classroom was Alex. After a while of observation, Jerry realized that there was a strong bond and connection between the student and in the class and the teachers. So there was many fun memories and moments that have been shared when Alex was at Wilson. Unfortunately, at this age, I'm 76 years right now, I fail to recall all of those wonderful memories, but whatever remains in my mind will be cherished forever. And let me share one of the one I remember. Jerry's expectation from teachers was not only to deliver a rich monastery education for the students, but she also engaged with them, but also but to also engage with them in variety of fun activities which she brought into our classroom. The one I want to talk about was full of fun and easy to implement. The activity was about 20 to 30 minutes of running around the school's property for at least 3-4 laps each time. On your relative long route, each time you may encounter some unexpected obstacles along the way while you were making your route complete. As a result, the smooth exercise usually changed into a chasing competition among school children, which requires decent concentration as well as good flexibility to maneuver. In these endurance runs, one of the front runners was Alex. He led the pack many times, as far as I remember, and loved to set the bar high as he was full of energy and excitement. As one of his teachers, I found him to be such a determined student and more mature in comparison in his age. He was serious about his education and was aggressively preparing himself for the future challenges ahead. There was no doubt in my mind that if he was among us now, he would be able to contribute a great deal of his loved ones and his immunity as well, which we got. If anyone were to walk into my office at our Montessori school in Garland, you would see two specific items in my workplace. One is a colorful ceramic jar with the signature of all 26 of my students on it, including Alex. And the second item is this classroom picture. This is the one, always there. Of course, they're in a big frame. So the second item is this classroom picture in my hand, in which Alex is in the front row, standing tall and sharp. So, dear parents of Alex, and dear friends of Alex, you are not alone in this grief. And you won't be alone. We are all here with you. Please accept Mary's and our sincere condolences. Our thoughts and prayers are with Alex and his family. Peace of mind.
Anyone else from the top? Okay. This is actually my brother.
Oh, you blew my opening.
What's your last say? I was going to say, obviously, I'm not a cousin. Since somebody blew it, she said she was the last one. There are actually, I think, 4 other cousins that should have been here that couldn't make it. Maybe? Did I miscount? Anyway, but the point, the reason I came up here is to kind of give a little insight into the family that spawned Alex. Okay, you heard from some of his cousins, and you heard from Alex. Alex is actually my youngest brother. There's quite a big gap between him and me, 10 years, in fact. And so I did spend some time with him growing up, and then I left, and I didn't really get to know him very much after that. And then I met PT for the first time. I only know him as PT. You mentioned how many names he has, but I only knew him as PT. I met PT when he was maybe 3 or 4 years old for the first time. And the only contact I had with him, as my daughter Layla mentioned, is when we would visit Dallas for Easter or my mother's birthday, because my mom spent time with him, or Christmas, Thanksgiving, or whatever. So my only exposure to PT was those little bits. Good or bad, that was my only exposure. And I think it was April who said he was the most stubborn. And somebody said he was sarcastic. A lot of people said he was enthusiastic and energized and friendly. I wanted to focus on the sarcastic, enthusiastic, and stubborn. Those are characteristics of almost everybody in my family, including me and Alex. I have a sister who's trying to hide her face, and another brother over there who's not even showing up. I just wanted to say that the PT came from this family. He's probably the youngest of his cousins, and a lot of his character probably developed because of his exposure to his uncles and aunts and cousins and grandparents and so on. So, my daughter was commenting just a little while ago. There's a picture over there. She said, if he didn't look so young, he would actually look like me when I was that age. But he was a lot younger in that picture.
A lot skinnier too, if you look at that picture over there.
Yeah.
Anyway, but PT, whenever I did meet him, the one memory I have of him is, even though I come from a technology background, he would come up to me and he was always enthusiastic about his video games and his developing love for developing games. And he came up to me one Christmas and said, Uncle Vince, do you know what RPG is? You want to see? I said, sure, I know what it is. But of course I didn't really know what he was talking about. And so he tried to show me. I'd never heard of RPG. Actually, I'm not really sure until somebody said role-playing game. So, but he was really very enthusiastic and stubborn is probably the wrong word. He was opinionated, much like the rest of his cousins.
I'm actually going to try and hold the rest of the family for the end. So, but I sense it. I'm trying to put myself in the seat of a lot of people who are out there, trying to figure out, okay, Bushido and Shout were his online personas. Alex is his given name. You can see up there it says Alex Paul Sian. Where does PT come from? Right? In fact, when you hear his mom call him, it sounds like PD, right? And I remember a lot of his friends is like, is his name Pete? No. His name's not Pete. It's not Peter. She's not really saying PD. She's saying PT. When he was born, I made the decision that he was going to be part 2. The sequel. Better than the original. It actually said Alex PT Sian on his birth certificate. My mother decided she was, you've heard about in the family talking about sarcasm, stubbornness in the family. It's hereditary. We all got it from my mother. She came to me with this look on her face that was the kind of look a mom would give you when you're trying to convince you, really? That's your judgment? And she just kind of casually said, it's not very Christian, is it? Yeah, I guess not, Mom. So, we had to have this birth certificate redone at Alex also. In the family, he's PT. Everybody knew him as PT, so part 2. So I thought, for those of you out here who only know him as Shout or Bushido, it's like, what is that? What are they talking about? Okay. Enough about that. I'd like to invite Summer and Tyler and the rest of the video game community to be able to come through here, and you've heard from our family who have had the time of the day to take a look at the forum posts. And I want to preface bringing up the video game community by saying that the family tried to get it. Right. I mean, he was so enthusiastic. It was like a one-track mind. Everything with him was about video games. I mean,
If he was talking to me, I didn't understand what he was talking about anyway.
and it was 150 miles an hour. And he wasn't waiting to hear if you understood. It was, I mean, I'm sure all of you, I've read some of the posts. Like, I was like, okay, I can see his character still there, but it was always on the topic you guys were you could come up here and share about. A little bit more, I was hoping to just leave it at the end, but since we're talking about video games, I want you to know a couple of things. One is, he learned how to use a mouse before he learned how to use a spoon. I'm a diehard Apple fanboy evangelist. I had my first Mac in 1986. He had his first Mac at 8 months old. And at that time, it was 1995, 1996. I don't know how many of you grew up in that time, but CD-ROM games were the thing. And his eye-hand coordination at 8 months was crazy. There's a picture I'm going to show you later. It's a traditional gamer pose. Left hand on the keyboard, right hand on the mouse, staring intently at the screen. He's 2 years old. Okay? With a modem in front of him. So yeah, his life has all been video games. So he's had every Game Boy from the original. I still have some of them held together with medical tape, duct tape, gauze, black tape. He wasn't much of an engineer, but he played the life out of those games. Every game system. They let us to the side here. A Nintendo deck. For those of you who don't know, his ashes are removed. That's his urn. I thought that was appropriate. Okay. Everybody wanted to hold a mic pop for the end. Thank you. So, Summer Tyler, let's get back to video games.
Howdy. I am Summer Thomas Hesby. I'm the president of Society of Play. I've known Shout for 10 years. In fact, he was one of the first game developers I met here when I moved down here from Missouri. And we made games together. We competed against each other. He helped me move. He broke a window. For anyone who ever comes to a Thomas Hesky house party, if you check my laundry room, there is a Mega Man 6 wall scroll in there. He gave that to me. And we argued about pixel art, we argued about anime, we argued about so many things. But even when I disagreed with him on smears and dithering and pixels for pixel art, I was always impressed by him. He was so passionate, y'all. You could tell that he touched a video game because of his style. The double outlines, the explosion, the cat girls, the zaniness. You could just tell it was him, and you could not take that away from him. You couldn't even replicate it. You couldn't. It was, if he touched it, it was his, and you could tell. The little anecdote that I want to share from Society of Play, again, we've known him for 10 years. Society of Play used to meet in person once a month. And we would be in the middle of trying to do our opening ceremony. And without fail, he was always late. With a yo! And then he would start trying to argue with someone as he walked in, well, I'm trying to open the damn meeting. So eventually, we were taught by him that Society of Play meetings always start 5 minutes late. We continue to hold that rule from now until the end of time. All meetings start late because we are waiting for him. Shout will be missed, but he will not be forgotten. Thank you.
Summer's husband, Tyler. Alright, I'm just gonna I do want to bring attention to some of the things that some of the people in our community made. It's a collection of people, Kalish, Sam, Ryan, put together a little urn with Casey Grimm's game on it, and I forgot how you say it, with a cool picture from a motorcycle with the light shining through. I don't remember how to call it. Lithophane? Lithophane. We wanted to make some special things for him, his memory. He means a lot to us. In the true spirit of Shout, I had a massive, 16-page rambling notes with no articulation or through line, so I'm going to try to grab a couple things from it because I could bring myself to summarize it. One thing you'll, also I do want to say just PT, yeah, I don't know who PT is. Shout. I think Shout's abbreviated from ShoutScion. I don't know the origin of that name. We didn't give it to him. We met him with it. We would frequently, at those meetings when he's late, he'd start talking loudly, and we quickly would just yell at him, "Shut up, please." And in all jest and lightheartedness, it was just kind of, Shout was loud. And anytime anyone asked him today, it's just, why do we call him Shouts? Because he was loud. Because he was loud in a very loving and endearing way. Oh yeah.
I first met him when we kind of started our game development journeys at similar times. I think he'd been in Society Play just a little bit longer than me. But I was wrapping up college, joining the community. He was starting at the same time. I was making 3D games. He was making 2D games. I felt like we were kind of competing to be the best in our own little categories. And at first we were kind of bumping shoulders with each other, in a ever so slightly rude way, like kind but competitive. I remember one of the first game jams I did with Society of Play, 3 a.m. rolls around and, Shout and I are the only ones still working. So just, the two of us just kind of competitively pushing each other harder, better. And, he's someone that really, I always strived because I felt like from the very start, he understood something about games that took me a long time to figure out. Maybe that's because y'all like imparted him beginning on this at a much younger age. Maybe it's just because he worked really hard at it. I always thought that he was just very innately talented, but I realized afterwards, seeing all of his drawing books, that it wasn't necessarily innate. I think he was innately passionate and innately interested, but he actually practiced a lot. He worked very hard, consistently for long periods of time before I even started game development. So something I admired as kind of innate skill was actually just practice. And also on the rambling, he did that to us too. And we also did not understand all of it and could not keep up with it. I think we understood a lot more of it than y'all, but I still think that last 20%, I would find myself like, all right, roll that back, explain that. I need you to slow down. I worked with him on a game jam as late as this November. Very recently, I think even till the end, having very little energy, he still was coming up with new ideas, had new game ideas, was wanting to work with people he hadn't worked with yet. And that was a big bucket list for me because I just, ever since I started game development, just wanted to make a video game with Shout. And finally getting to do that, and we didn't finish it because he was very ill. And he was very optimistic, so I didn't realize how ill he was. But he still did an ungodly amount of work on the project despite it. Had new characters, new stories, pages and pages and pages of ideas written down for a game that we're supposed to make in 2 weeks. And I'm having to like, Shout, please, just like help me understand what we're supposed to be doing here and what the vision is, because it's just a lot. It's so much. He was very opinionated. One of the biggest honors I had, not only getting to work on a game jam with him, but sometime this last year I got to show him, because he's a huge Pokemon fan. I'm actually working on a Pokemon-inspired game, and I finally got to show him like, oh, here's all my Pokemon. He had no opinions. He just liked it. He just liked it. I was just like, oh. You know, I really thought he was about to like tear apart all the little dudes and have all these opinions, but he just liked it, and he just kind of geeked out with me on what we really liked about it. And that was a really high form of praise for me to receive. I've got pages and pages and pages I want to go through, but it's something you hear from a lot of people in our community is that a few of us were very close to him, but just about everyone in the community was left with a very strong impression of him. So in that document, if you haven't looked at it, I recommend you do, but you'll see a lot of, I didn't know Shout very well, and then like 3 paragraphs of just like all of the good feelings and inspiration that they had from Shout. A good friend of mine, Eric Grossman, who has never met Shout in person, lives on the West Coast, exclusively knows him through text logs, actually I almost want to read it, but he had a long post of just being stuck in a creative rut and kind of not necessarily seeing the merit or value or just the innate charm in it, and then beginning to engage with Shout and talk to him about his vision and seeing things the way he thinks about games, found himself getting out of that rut himself. And I think a lot of us have those kind of layers of inspiration of just, he really understood games in a way that was very inspiring and very natural, that a lot of us spend a lot of time trying to see the charm and the love and the passion in the games industry, and he just kind of embodied it in a just really intense and relentless way. And this is all a lot of rambling, but I can keep going. I'm going to cut myself a little short. One big thing I really wanted to say is that it's incredibly tragic that we lost Shout at this young age. But I really want to say to his family, thank you for giving us Shout. Thank you for the time that we had with him. So from all of us, he left a very large and meaningful impression on all of us as creatives, as individuals. And he's someone that, even if I hadn't seen him for 2 years, we were great friends again. It's as if it had only been a day since we'd seen each other. And he's just an incredibly loving and passionate and inspiring person that I still aspire to be as good at making games as him. So thank you for getting him to us. And although I really wish it had been a lot longer, I really cherish the time that I've had with him. I just wish it was more. But that's all. Thank you. I'm not sure who's going next, unless it's speaking. If anyone from the game development community does want to speak, just raise your hand when you want to go next.
I'm gonna keep it short because I don't cry pretty. I was on the more text-based side, like Tyler mentioned. I didn't know Shout that well in person. I mostly knew him as kind of our Bigfoot, our cryptid, like just a legend among the community, but rarely in person. And I had no idea he was ever ill. So when I was at work, I saw the news. Completely turned me off. Like Tyler said, I hope I can only ever live to make a game as good as something Shout would make. And his work was incredible. So when I was brought into the planning committee, as we called it, I didn't know why I was there really until I was asked to make the urn for Shout. Thank you for allowing me to do that. Thank you for allowing me to use my talents to serve your family. I would also like to thank Kalish and Ryan. Kalish helped with painting it. Ryan helped with printing it. I just want to say thank you again. Thank you for getting the shout.
So I stand kind of in an interesting nexus. I'm one of the newest members of Society Play, relatively speaking. I actually talked to you before I talked to Alex. Over to Shout. I've got all the names right. But I did have the honor of getting. I feel like it was an incredible honor to get to know Shout at like the place where his passion overlapped with people. You know what I mean? He was so. I kind of feel like it's a little bit my job to be like the mediator between here's all the gamers and here's all like the other people who have no idea what dithering is. He was excellent. It wasn't just that we liked him, we did like him. Sometimes he made that difficult, but we did like him very much. He was excellent. And he did not get there accidentally. It wasn't some kind of magic trick. He worked incredibly hard. I can't think of him as anything but Shout, but I know that when I said it to people who didn't know him, they think that means like an angry shout, or a yelling shout, and it was always a shout of enthusiasm. It was always a shout of just pure passion. I'm one of the organizers, so we have to, look in the chat, make sure nobody's going crazy, and just on a random day, there would just be 3 pages where it looked like he got into an argument with someone, but there was no one. It's just 3 pages of stuff. And you could watch. He wasn't doing it to show off or anything. You could tell he was working. He was constantly working it out, thinking about it. What am I doing? What am I trying to do? And the thing that I found most inspiring about Chow, besides his incredible dedication to work, it might be something you guys don't know. He was very stubborn.
What?
Right? But there was something that was stubborn with a purpose. He was trying to figure it out. Whatever it is, he was committed to figuring it out. And I saw this in person. He came over for Thanksgiving once. And he was going off. I'm not going to get into the details, but I'm not sure I remember them, but something about game design, and he was just going crazy. And I happened to say, well, hang on a second. I don't know if that's true. And what I saw is that energy, that shout, that enthusiasm, that passion suddenly went super quiet and very focused. And I went, he is really listening. And at that moment I realized it was never an argument. It was always a search that he was like inviting all of us on. And I am honored and grateful to have known someone who could hold so tightly to something he loved and yet also hold it so lightly. To be like, I could be wrong. Let me try something else. I think that it was deeply inspiring, and I know for myself I am changed because I'm very grateful to all of you. Edward, actually, he was arguing with me, and I did all my messages. Oh yeah.
Hi. Hi, my name is Jessica McCaster. We actually have our own little art group. And then I also joined PISA a little while later. I actually knew Shout through a Geekmate's Discord. And he was like, why isn't there an art channel here? So he was actually the one who started our Friday night meetups at Tom and Tom's. And we were one of the first people to meet together. And he introduced himself as Shout, like the song, Shout in the Name of Love. and it's funny because after COVID, that's how I recognized him, because he had this long hair, like in the pictures, and he had very loud voice. And I was like, I'm not really sure, like, if that's the person, but he is very loud, and I'm gonna go over there and talk to him, like, make sure that, like, this is actually Shout, because, when we started this art group, my first impressions of him was that he was a little eccentric and maybe hyperactive. And whoever you said, person, like, you got it on point when you're talking about, like, when he rambles. He's not actually arguing with people. I mean, we definitely have arguments, like, no doubt, but a lot of it, I feel like his ramblings reveal a lot about his thought process. And it's probably because he couldn't contain it all in his head. He had a lot of things going on. I'm sorry. He's always confident about his ideas, and despite the few hiccups it took to get there, and I feel like he was a very chaotic, wonderful person, and sometimes he gets swept up in his work. I like to think we bonded over general shit talk. People, media, and especially about being cocky about our own work. We were very cocky about, like, what we could do and what we could accomplish through hard work. We never held back about what we truly felt about something, and that's something that we bonded over, like being passionate about creativity and design. And I feel like from that moment on, we had a mutual respect for each other. I also just started game design at UTD. It was in the beginning of my career. And Shout was also super eager to jump in with my projects. He was a great teacher in that he never gave me a straight answer, but he helped me examine the problem and break down the methods it took to get there. And he wouldn't leave until he felt comfortable that I understood basic concepts and implemented my own interpretations. So, and I honestly don't think I could last the semesters without his help. You could tell he invested a lot of his time in his friends, and helping other people, and I'm still impressed by the sheer amount of projects he made, and he still has time to go out and like make everybody feel respected and included, and you know, um, helping other people. I'm glad that we continue to have Friday meetups even after COVID happened, and that we disaffected from the main group. And I'm glad we continue to shit talk and commiserate over life and share our personal experience. I'm glad we could help each other through difficult and emotional times and kept in touch. And we grew to be close friends. And I look forward to hanging out regularly again. And his perseverance and optimism through the pandemic and cancer made me willing to dismiss the reality of the situation. But in this, I think we can all agree that his projects and creative drive was amazing and portrayed his quirks throughout. You can really piece together who he was and what he was like through his work. And losing him means losing all his unique ideas. But he was also more than just his work. He was someone who would always be there for you. And he was someone who gave you his undivided attention and expertise. His confidence and his strong personality meant that you could count on him about his thoughts, tips, opinions, games, projects, concepts, and otherwise. It also meant that he was a ridiculous person with crazy, half-baked ideas and more than enough enthusiasm for everyone at the table. His ideas spread like he ran through the parking lot, bursts of energy and spontaneous action. And I'm glad I could be among his closest friends. Someone he knew who could trust and understood his quirks and accepted weird and wacky person he was without judgment or be annoyed at his energetic personality. He was someone I could trust, and he's become one of my close friends and close confidence. And I'm gonna miss all the snark and real talk moments and cruising in the car with Japanese city pop playing in the background. And I'm sorry to lose him, and I wish he had a little more time in his life. Thank you.
These are really hard to follow up with, you know? Oh wow, it's a lot of people. Hi. Sorry, this is my first time actually looking at the back room. Hello, everybody. I'm Liz Madden. Shout. I was also part of the art group with Justin Shout, and also with Tristan and Lou and Bunny. And I joined the group fairly early on after it had been formed. And I remember, whenever he would introduce himself, like I said, it was always be Shout. When people would look at him really confused, like, did you say what I thought you said? He's like, yes, like yelling. He was never really good at being quiet. We were at a limited animation event over at UTD, and I don't remember who was talking or what they were saying. I just remember 2 seats over, Shout is whispering so loud that the person on the stage looked at us and said, please be quiet. And later on, he did go up and apologize. He didn't realize how loud he was. I agree with Jess. A lot of what we bonded over was just the day-to-day, the venting, the figuring out, like, what do we want to do when we get older? How do we get through our current problems? I made a list of all just the different things that I wanted to bring up. Little things that we would kind of make fun of each other with. Did y'all know how he would snap his fingers? Okay, for those who don't know, he snapped like this, he snaps like this. We spent a day trying to figure out how do you make this make sound, and I still can't do it right. I tried to come up with different stories. I appreciate when you said that he was one of the fastest runners. There was a day where we had gone ice skating, and most of us didn't know what we were doing. He absolutely did. You wouldn't know that we were in Texas and we don't get snow here because he was really good at keeping his balance and helping us kind of get used to figuring out how do we not die on ice skates. And later that day, we went to dinner and we were in the parking lot and he just suddenly books it across the parking lot because he can. Because he was so spontaneous and it was so great. Let's see. When we got to know him, he never carried a phone. Who knew this? It took a while before he actually had a phone to the point that there would be a day that we'd be at a restaurant and he'd just pull his laptop. It was just a normal thing for him. It's like, what are you doing with this? It was the craziest thing when he finally did have a phone. So, it's definitely weird. It's not real. It slowly does become real. The last time that we did see each other was Halloween. And we would go to his place. Thank you again for having us over. And we would just play games. We would hang out. We would bet. Just all the normal things you do when you're hanging out with your besties. And there were several points where whenever we would just drive around in my car, I kind of consider us the Three Musketeers of how often we hang out. And whether we say pop, if we're listening to whatever the coolest new meme is nowadays, it was great. And I know that there's not going to be a point where I can get something like that back. And it hurts. It sucks. I will say that for a lot of y'all have mentioned that it was a shock. Even when we would all be hanging out at his place, we didn't realize it was that bad because of how confident, how excitable he was, how he said when he was getting through this and he was always doing better. It sucks in the nicest way possible, but I know a lot of us are going to miss him. And I'm glad that we were able to all come together, be able to share things about him. I will say that anytime that we did get to hang out, we never left those meetups thinking that this is going to be the last time. It would always be, what are we going to do next? When are we going to hang out? When are we going to play games? We're watching movies. We got to see Titanic for the first time with him. Yeah, you've never seen that movie before. Yeah. But yes, otherwise, whatever amount in any way that we did get to know him, it was great. It was a blessing, and I'm thankful for the time that we did get to spend. Thank you.
Anyone else have to come up and say a few words?
It does.
I know, right?
Okay, hi, I'm Ben. So I originally met Shout at the D-Supplements. It was Tony Khan too. So I was like 14 or 15, did not know a thing, and then Shout comes up, and he's just like so intensely focused on what I made. And that was like so cool to me, because no one had ever done that before. It was just him basically geeking over something that I made. And so it was me, Edward, you just mentioned that, and Shout were the only three game developers. And GameMaker is a game engine that I used and used to use Pro. And we would just sometimes just go on rants about it. It was really cool. Because most people in DSoft use Unity or Unreal. But then
me and Shout and Edward use GameDev. And he was extremely passionate, extremely inspirational. He still is just an inspiration to me today. He inspired my current art style, my current game style, everything that I like to make. He was smart. He was genuine and so incredibly stubborn in the best way possible. I'm in high school. I'm sure, will still continue to be an inspiration for the rest of his life. So, not sure, but yeah. Thank you.
Really like to come up. I'm Rick, and the middle brother to Alex. And I want to speak for the other cousins that was unfortunate not to make it here. And I'm like Vince. We went our separate ways as we grew up. And my family didn't really get to know PT. And I'm thankful, I'm grateful for hearing and learning about my nephew that I didn't get to know much. And bear with me because I want to take a picture of this crowd, and so that the other cousins can understand a little bit on how it's reached out to a whole lot of people. Thank you all so much. It's good to hear about my nephew that just did not get to know much about. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open up the floor to anybody who feels like they'd like to share a few words with me. Come on up, anybody.
Hello?
Hello. So I'm Tristan. I was with Jess and Liz and Lulu, was Shout in the Friday night art meetup that we had together. I don't really have that much to say, but I just want to take this time to remember the fact that when I first met Shout, one of the things that struck me most about him was that he is probably one of the smartest people that I've ever gotten to know. His knowledge of video games and pop culture and politics and history was pretty unmatched, and I was very lucky to get to know him and have those conversations with him and be able to just be able to share that experience with him. I know a lot of people have been talking about his work and his games, and I think I was in admiration of a lot of the stuff that he did and a lot of the projects that he created and how his intelligence showed through all that. But I think more than that, I remember Shout as a good friend and a good person in general, and yeah, that'll be a memory that will always.
I'm sorry, I was nervous in the beginning. I'm Francis. This is interesting. Alex P.T. Shout and that other one, whatever. He has so many names. My sister is Francis, Annette, and Kai, and I'm not sure what else other names. And Alex is the only one who has Alex. So he takes after his mom in some parts too, I guess. I didn't know PT that much, I live in Hawaii. He was raised here. But the few times that he would come to our family events, it's as you described. Here's the nephew. He pulls out his, he sits in the corner, and up comes his laptop. And that's all you see of PT is him and the laptop. Everything else is going on around him. But like you said, he was kind and devoted to his parents. But what I heard from you tonight, and I want to share this is, though he was only here for a short time, that was a gift. And the gift of his life is a gift to you. He was enthusiastic, positive, focused. He shared, he was sharing, these are all the things I've been hearing from you guys tonight. He was kind, and the interesting thing is, it's all generosity of his self, not of material things or anything. And that's like the greatest and most genuine, authentic thing you can be is yourself. And again, he lived a short life, but he goes on in the imprint he's made in your life. You're not going to forget him. Your interaction with him has left an imprint in your life, and it's going to change your lives and the lives of others who come into contact with you. That is the legacy and the inheritance he lives with you. And I want to share with you something about, I shared with my sister that actually called words to describe or comfort her, the loss of their own son. And I kept praying, like, Lord, what can I say to help my sister? And, the only thing I could share with her is that I knew that they loved him well. And I shared with her a little story I heard about this little kid trying to understand how when someone passes and what heaven is and all that. And the little boy, in summary, when he heard it, he goes, okay, so you mean that their last breath on earth is followed by the next and first breath in heaven. And that's the only thing I could share with my sister to give her hope that we'll be seeing PT again. But I thank you for all you've shared, because he will always be with us because of you.
Okay.
What's you? Is that you?
I'm on my tippy toes. I didn't prepare anything because I didn't expect to be talking. Also didn't know how to dress, and I wore his favorite jacket. I didn't know what to wear with it, but I know that I wanted to wear it. I think I'm one of the only people in this room that has known him my whole life. I don't have a lot of memories of him. I have a few, like, from recently, and I remember when I was little, I vaguely remember his room, and it would always be dark. And I remember seeing like this, the one light would be like his computer. I remember he would always be so enthusiastic, and every time he would try and tell me about like what he was working on, or like just something he was excited about in the moment. He would just be rambling on, and I don't remember a lot of it because it was just so fast, and it was a lot. But I remember every time I would walk in the door, he would say, "Hey kid," even in the hospital, and it was so difficult to see him in that way. And I remember a few months ago, actually, he was trying to show me how to like start my own video game. And I remember I didn't understand any of it, but it was so fun. And he was so patient, and he wasn't like, "Why didn't you understand that?" He was like, he was like, "Okay, so what do you think you would have to do to make it do this?" He was very understanding, and I don't know what to say. It's a lot, but I wish I could get that swing back. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I don't think anyone.
There's a lot of people. I didn't come up early because I was a little anxious. So I knew Shout. I actually knew him as Alex, even though he didn't go by that name. I don't know why that's how I knew him. I worked on a game with him back in 2015. And we went to, I'm not sure if it was his first convention, but it was my first convention. And what was that? No, this was one in Dallas in 2015. What's the word? It was not. It might have been the first Let's Play. Yeah. Actually, just before that, it was the SGC. I'm a little scattered and kind of prepared speech. But he was so dedicated. He brought his entire desktop computer to the convention hall. It was behind the convention, like not out where people would see him, just behind the table, working on the game, patching in fixes as people were playing the game throughout the convention. And we got zero sleep that weekend. And I remember I was driving him back to his apartment after the end of it, and I think I blacked out on the way. And every time I met him after that, we bumped into each other. Hey, remember that time we almost crashed on the freeway because we didn't sleep? But it's surreal that he's not here. remember having so many discussions where he was very stubborn, very adamant, and he was very blunt. I remember one time I showed him because I would do some supplemental art based on what he was doing, and nobody can replicate his art. He's him. And he looked at my art and he's like, "Yeah, I don't like it." I was like, I always knew what he thought. He never sugarcoated anything. So that did make it makes so much more meaningful when he did give you a compliment because you knew he meant it. But yeah, I was following everything he was doing these past couple of years, and I was, we were talking about his plans and all the projects he was working on, and I was so excited for the things he was creating and the passion he had for it. I don't know how to put a bow on this speech or whatever you call it, but just he left a huge impact on me. That the team that we had been working on that project with back in 2015, he had left that team for reasons I won't get into, and I ended up leaving that team too, and I was very lost and didn't feel like I had like a community or a home to like. I felt very alone, and that's when I forget how I ended up finding it, but I think it was through him. I found that Society Play, and he was there when I stepped into Society Play, and kind of felt like he understood what I'd gone through in a way no one else really did because he was in there in the trenches with me, and I know it's. I miss him.
Anyone else? Don't be shy. Come on up. A lot of people here have talked about, in a very general way, how good Shout was. I want to talk about something very specific. Shout was incredibly good at making coherent content. If you saw Shout working on an asset, you could tell at a glance what project it was for. You could tell if it was for a number of his projects. You could tell exactly what it was for. And then once he started animating it, you could get a sense of how it was supposed to move. And incredibly, once he put it in his game, it felt correct. Very few people can go from an idea, a sketch, actually creating that asset and then writing the character in the code to make that feel all correct. He was very good at that. Nothing felt foreign, nothing felt out of place. That is an uncommon skill that I had a lot of respect for Shao for. Okay, I want to continue. Hopefully everyone say shout. 1, 2, 3. Shout! Okay, we need to be out here in 15 minutes. You're not going to hear a lot from me. I want to say
just a couple of things in closing. Going through all of his assets, his physical assets at the house, there is a lot of content. It's never seen the light of day. And it's my plan, whenever I can get through 10 minutes of looking at it without breaking down, to be able to catalog this stuff and get it onto his YouTube channel at ShoutScion's. It's going to take a while, and if any of you have the time or the passion to want to help, feel free to reach out to me, because for reasons only really known to Shout, as much as he tried to explain himself and the passion he had for game dev to his family, if you guys in the game dev community had him go over your head sometimes, it was like that for us all the time. And so, you mentioned, I have found thousands, literally thousands of text files that have story notes, character notes, scene notes. It's ridiculous. What's ridiculous about it is the file names are just sequential. Your text file 00123. Thousands of them. You've got to literally open them up and try to figure out what is he talking about. I have no idea, because I don't have the context, but it's amazing to see that he made the time to do this. And the sketches, I found a dozen sketchbooks that I've scanned and I'm going to put on there. But beyond these formal sketchbooks, there's just these random drawings that are almost like on the back of a napkin or something, wherever he could. And literally, there's thousands of them in crates. And so it's going to take me a while to get that stuff put together. I also found out I managed to get access to all of his YouTube channels, and privately, some of you have seen some of these unpublished videos. But there's no reason to keep them unpublished. So I'm going to do my best to kind of put them all out there. And it will take time, but that's the plan. I want to be able to make sure that the world that has any passion for his work will have a chance to see some of the stuff that they will see. The last thing I want to close about it, I thought about a lot of things that I wanted to share with you about my son. You've all said he's opinionated, and you can all know that when he starts to get on a rant, he's coming from a position where he thinks he's right. Okay? And he's going to defend that position until you can convince him you're more right. That's hard. It can happen, and revel in it what he did, right? When you could get him to say, you're right, I'm wrong. I've been seeing this from a different angle. That's like, mark that day in the calendar. You got that from me. And you need to try to imagine what conversations with me and my son were like. We're both coming from a position of, I'm right, you're less right. You may not be wrong, you're not as right as I am. Until you can come up with more facts than I can. I'm not going to speak on a subject unless I feel like I understand it well enough to talk about it. That's it. There were times when he would start talking about video game development. No, I don't get it. Stop talking. Don't ask me for my opinion. It doesn't matter. I can tell you right now, it's not going to matter. He never felt like I understood video game development, even though I've had a 50-year career in technology and understood SDLC before he even knew what SDLC was. So, all the methodology, programming. I was programming before he was born. So we can't really talk about that. But there was nothing he felt like I could contribute to his video game development career. So there was some tense times there between father and son. It did lead to a discussion recently, like in the last few weeks. There's a way to describe him that all of you will probably agree. And the reason we were discussing it is that he felt like not enough people were like this. And he felt like if there was a message he could get out to the world, it needed to be more like this. And the word is authentic. Okay? Too many times you could tell when he was talking to someone that they were speaking out of their ass. And they're just like, they really don't understand. They don't have the conviction. They don't have the passion behind what they're talking about. And they're just trying to fit in.
And he didn't like that. I think for all the people you heard speaking there, Shout, PT, Bushido, Alex, was authentic. And so my message to you is just to carry on the message you would share. Don't be someone you're not. Just be authentic. He was prophetic a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if it was the medications he was taking, but it was on one of those rambling things, but he just blurted out. I want world peace. I want people to stop hurting each other. And then he fell asleep. It was amazing to me that after the conversations we were having that whole time for hours, that he would like switch that all off and then just look at me and say, "That's what I want." And then it's just, so those are my messages for you. He would want you to, if you're a video game developer, he would want you to be passionate, do the research, do the work, be diligent, and get your work out there. Okay? Don't let people talk you out of it. Whatever your vision is, if you've got conviction behind it, make it happen. He would have been right there with you to help you do that, if you could. Okay, we need to clean up and get out. Last thing I want to share with you is there's a song stuck in my head, and it's appropriate for him. I want you to hear it when you can, and remember him by it. It's by Rod Stewart. It's called Forever Young. He left us too soon, but he will be forever young. Thank you again for joining us. Your chicken tenders and cheese pizza made me full. I will tell you, that's how he ate it. He would tell me, "Dad, I'm hungry." And I'd go get the food and put it in front of him, and I'd go, "Okay, eat, it's there." But, "Okay, I'll get to it when I'm done." But I'm in the middle of something. So he ate that stuff cold all the time. And there's sugar-free fruit punch back there, one of his favorite things. If you know Shout at all, he was averse to sugar. And it's like, what's a weird kid? So like, "Dad, I don't want to get a cabinet." Okay, yeah. No sugary sodas, no sweets. He would enjoy, sometimes ripping off his mom with some of the candy that she had. So again, thank you. I could ramble all about my son for hours, but I want to thank you for coming out, sharing your thoughts, and sharing the memory of my son. Thank you all. Drive safe.